as a video game creator. I think it's a hell of a chess move. And Google previously did this with Chrome. At one point, there wasn't a good free browser. And Microsoft hasn't given enough for free. And they also did it with Gmail. More people use Gmail than any other email provider. So if they choose to give a higher percentage to people, it is going to be a severe blow to Apple and Google, who are competitors.
It's a great article. And the commonalities, Apple and Google both charge 30% for people who have inside the App Store. What Microsoft is trying to do is drop their percentage down to 12%, right? So obviously the lower percentage is more favorable to the creators, but also they're trying to do away with the favoring in apps. And so if you ever try to download an app, usually Apple is affiliated with the apps that are higher rated. And so like it gives you a disadvantage if you're a third party, right? Like if I'm trying to create an app, how can I compete with the company that is actually creating the app store? They're going to push their products first. And so it gives a disadvantage for that third party creator. And so they're trying to do away with that and have rankings, right? So if you look at social media, if you go into the app store, right, Instagram will be up there, right? It's the same. It's one of the most popular companies. But if I'm a third party app, I might not have a chance if I'm in terms of rankings, right? And there's a algorithm to it, but Apple has a lot to do with that. And so if you take those type of things away, and not that it'll be a fair playing field, but a new playing field, I think it works out for creators. But it's an interesting time, right? And that creator economy, what you're saying is 1,000% correct. Because I was thinking about the gaming piece of it. I'm like, look, this is a new way, right? Like this is a new way, because we spoke about this too. Like when I think we were having this conversation about Madden, and a lot of times when you listen to that Madden soundtrack, you get so familiar with these songs that actually when you hear them in your real life on the radio, you're like, oh, but like there's no spins that count for that, right? You just get paid. It doesn't matter how many people buy the game and how many times the game is played. That music is being played. You're getting paid one up front. But imagine if you're in that creator economy and now you're getting paid every time that song plays on that game, right? If it's inside of your own platform. So it's an interesting time. And does it kill Apple and Google? I don't know if it kills them, but it definitely hits it dents productivity.
Yep. And then on top of that, with inflation being higher, and as an investor, you guys didn't have to pick. So when you're saying, hey, do I like Lucid over XYZ, Microsoft, Apple? And I know you guys feeling like I'm beating a dead horse. The time to beat a horse is when it's dead. But when you're looking at the companies you can invest in, you have to see who has the most capital, because it's very easy to knock off Lucid's business. Like even if you look at Tesla, because Tim Cook doesn't like Elon, he'll never buy Tesla. If they wanted to, Apple could get into the EV car business tomorrow and buy Kia.
But aren't they're getting into the EV car business, right?
Yeah, well, they initially said they were going to do it with them.
It's not a top 5 priority. That's really just because he doesn't like Elon. So now I'll take 8% and use my government relationships and push Biden or whoever becomes president next to pick up our fleet of vehicles over yours. Yeah. Back to the Ozark thing. So.
Yeah, the EV. I mean, if you even look at last night, the EV market with all the Super Bowl ads, like ridiculous. The EV market in crypto.
Oh, Coinbase. Let's talk about that.
That was just. I mean, every other commercial.
Coinbase is the commercial that everybody's talking about.
14 million.
14 million.
That's how much it costs to do that.
And they crashed their site. They crashed the site, right?
But the problem is it crashed the site, and then they weren't able to. It wasn't functional.
Ash Cash made a good post about that. We about to say something here?
Yeah, well, we're tying to Ash Cash's point first.
Ash Cash made a post on Instagram that I saw today where he kind of related to small businesses, where he was like, Coinbase, they did everything right as far as, a great ad, got, all of the social media talking about it.
People chasing their TVs.
People, went to the thing, but they had some issues on the back end. They wasn't fully prepared for that many people, and it crashed. And he kind of related that to like, a small business where it was like, all right, you do this, you do your Black Friday sale, and then, you get 1,000 orders, but you can't fulfill it.
Mm-hmm.
Like be prepared beforehand. Be prepared beforehand. So now when the flood orders come in, you can actually, be ready for it, because nothing is worse than having a bunch of stuff and you're not actually prepared for it. So, yeah. We about to say in?
Counter to the argument, can I be very honest? And if I can, please put yes in chat.
Yes.
No.
What do you guys want? No, well, I'm not gonna say nothing crazy. I'm more alkaline, right? Shout out to all my advertisers, TBWA, etc., Sade, etc., and all my internet marketers, right? So when you spend $14 million in aggregate for an ad, and the ad was beautifully executed,
Mhm.
But the best one that I've seen in a long time. It reminded me of something like Ogilvy would have done back in the day. But when you're spending $14 million, you want a return. As a business owner, with all the servers that they own and the litigation that Robinhood has faced, you don't think that they have the server space to not handle it. The truth is, behind the site crashing, any marketer knows sometimes when you have a site crash, the best follow-up email to send is, hey, I'm so sorry, our server went down, and they'll shut the server down themselves to draw attention because of the FOMO. I don't think the server crashed. I think they brought them down for a second. Was there some throttling issues? Yes. But did it crash because of everyone going to the QR code? And then also, not only do you get the advertising dollar, this is what GoDaddy used to do 12 years ago. They would complain about the ad getting canceled. So now if I say, me as Red Panda, if I said, hey, I'm going to give you the number one stock to invest in for the next 3 years, and then it went to no signal, and I came back on, was like, hey, go to the site. Now for the next 2 or 3 days, they can get $5 or $6 million worth of press off of it and have it talked about. The Kia EV commercial was not talked about after like this. So to the agency who created it and the creative director who came up with this and the plan to bring the servers down so you can do the hey, we apologize.
Well played.
Well played. You notice the server went down for the site, but no accounts got affected. Exactly.
There was a giveaway too, right? Weren't they giving a certain amount of money in Bitcoin?
$15.
$15. Yeah.
To anybody
yeah. So that like people were chasing their TVs, rewinding it, trying to go back. It was well played. I thought that was a great ad. I thought the BMW EV was a dope one with Selma Hayek.
Facebook had a metaverse ad.
Yeah, man. It's, I mean,
well, so yeah, that was good.
Couple joints was all right. Well played.
Let's talk about some political talk briefly. Let's talk about some political talk. Russia versus Ukraine. How big of a threat is it to the United States?
Because we have not the best leadership. I'll dance in this arena very carefully. I stated before that I didn't think it would be that big of a deal. My sentiment and statement has changed. So if this goes left, and now because of the forces of China, et cetera, we talked about before, if they get a hold of that country, it could be damaging for us, and it could be the linchpin that is needed to knock us off of our square. So for those you don't know, politically, this could be like when Tyson got knocked down, and it was like, please get up. I think if Russia, I really think this is an attempt to build a strategy on their end to then pair with China to then begin to take us over. China's already taken over Africa, for those of you who have not traveled and been there, right? And then the islands, you see it as well. But if they can then slowly impede that territory and formulate a plan with China, they can then slowly take over port cities and then work their way inward. So we definitely have to keep our eyes on this. Well, how will it affect the market? I don't think it'll lead to World War III, but it could have a slight turn in the market, maybe 5%, 7% to the downside. But we have to keep our eyes on this because this thing is getting a little bit more serious than I initially projected.
So even with that, right, when we talk about the market, I should be, I mean, and we talk about moral investing, but like in terms of potential, I guess, wars and things like that, are there stocks like a Raytheon or Boeing and even commodities like oil that we should keep our eye on? Because I know when they announced that Russia was on the verge of invading Friday, we saw oil prices go up. They pulled back a little bit today, but are these like some of the things that we should be looking at in terms of investment? Or we just like stand away from that and stick to our script?
Homework time. If the United States gets taken over, which company has a war chest that is equivalent to a nation state? I'll give you guys a couple seconds. It's going to be the ones I talked about. I know I mentioned the cartel thing last week, and somebody in your YouTube comments like, how are you now using drug references? Clinical definition of cartel is an association of suppliers with the purpose of maintaining price or restricting competition. So not only are Apple, Microsoft, Google competition, they're also allies, the same way the United States and our allies will be. So it will be the same ones. Oil long-term isn't a good investment because there's a lot of manipulation that can happen, and we still have not hit the highs from 2007, 2008, even though it's had a hell of a rebound. But that's because fund managers were chasing greater gains because of what happened with growth stocks. And this is for any decade, any era. You want to invest your money with the companies that have the 5 highest cash reserves and the greatest market share possible, because they'll be able to withstand anything. Like if Apple had to just go to South America and do business out of South America to survive, that'll be great. Lucid, Hertz, even most crypto, if China takes over. And in China, America is the only country that lets the inmates run the asylum, given that like the corporations are the kings. So even if China emerges as the number 1 superpower, Alibaba, Tencent, etc., because of their political structure, they won't allow them to become number 1 or have a great influence. That's why you see from time to time, some of their biggest advocates or celebrities there will have to take a little vacation. That's mandatory. So yeah, Apple, Microsoft, Google will be great. I wouldn't deviate from that plan. And there are no commodities I would put majority of my money in either. Not gold either.
You know, let's talk about this real quick before we bring Frank on. Speaking about gold. So we haven't really talked about watches in a while.
Have we ever?
We
I think we
have a few times.
Briefly. That's why I said a while.
Yeah, I feel like on your leisure we might have.
No, we spoke about watches a few times.
No.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it.
The watch market, never seen anything like this before. So they're contemplating getting a AP, and talking to my guy in Atlanta, and he was saying like I think like the 20th or 50th edition, one like an anniversary's coming out. He said as soon as you buy it, it's 3 times higher off that you can sell it off market. The retail price, like let's say the retail price is 50. As soon as you buy it, you can sell it for at least $100,000 to $150,000. As soon as you walk outside the store. Watches is turning out to be a better investment than almost any commodity.
Factory.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
but that's something
directly from the supplier as well.
Huh?
Directly from the supplier.
No. 100%. Or authorized dealer.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that because I don't.
Please.
No. Don't buy. Well, shout out to all the jewelers out there. I don't buy anything from jewelers, but if you are, just be careful. But you should always buy from an authorized dealer or directly from the store. So like authorized dealers like London Jeweler. Who else? Torno. Or you can buy like straight from AP, Rolex. But these watches, we got to have a more advanced conversation about that. But these watches, the rates of return on these are higher. They're appreciating higher than almost anything right now.
No, right now, yeah. I mean,
crypto stocks, anything. Like,
even the process of trying to get it.
Well, you can't really get it. And that's why.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, there's no Rolexes. You go to any Rolex store in America right now, and there's no inventory. And it's not even a thing of them actually, like you having the money to buy it. They have to actually want it to sell it to you. So you have to like actually establish a relationship with the store, and they have to actually build like a client profile for you. There's a whole process with this, and then also you should know like which watches are better than others. Like of course, like the Daytona, extremely it's extremely complicated too. The movement is extremely complicated, and the Sky Dweller, another good one. The APs are appreciating very high right now. Richard Mille.
None's appreciating faster than that.
Shout out to him, 500. He has one. Richard Mille is like Board 8. It's like a Board 8.
We had a great conversation about that.
We did have a good conversation about the Board 8. We gotta have more conversations about that. But that just came to my mind because we talking about commodities and investing in gold. And that's another way to kind of invest in something. Watches are an investment. They are an investment. Yeah. And
we spoke about that, right? Like, even that post last week when we were talking about the Chanel bags, we were talking about, some people might look at it as a discretionary spending, but like if you're investing in these bags, we sold them 6 months. Watch is the same thing. Another thing you brought up, which is key, it was like having the money isn't enough now. Like that's the interesting part. And we saw that this weekend. Like we went to a couple of events and it was like there was plenty of people who had the money to be in the events. The problem is everybody's money's not good everywhere, and you have to be selected to even use the money. So that was very interesting too. I was like, wow, we got to create rooms where it's like, we can be accessible. And like, if you have the money and like you're in this world of finance, like we create the rooms now. Cause like, that's crazy. Like tables were going for $50,000 this weekend, like on a minimum. And if you had the 50 and you wanted to do it, and maybe it was a business expense, which is a lot, you couldn't even do it. Like you couldn't even spend it. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
The greatest law in business is supply and demand. But if I have this and a person needs it really bad, and I only have 2 of them, I can price it whatever I want to. So the less supply you make available of anything. That's what I tell you guys. There are some supply chain issues. For luxury manufacturers, it is an illusion to drive prices higher. Once again, if I only offered Stock Club to one person, put in chat what would the price of Stock Club be? I'll cash out to someone who
$1 million.
I need 50
$1 trillion. Somebody put 1.2658 million.
No, but one too low. If I can, the boy is his name, right? So I'll need 50 million up front, all cash,
off the rip,
to the highest bidder. Guggenheim Citadel, what you want to do.
And that's a business principle too, supply and demand. You can make money either way. You can make
the one that
money.
matters the most.
Huh?
It's the one that matters the most. It's hard to get y'all in the. Everybody want to, peruse and have y'all around.
Yeah.
It's only a certain amount of time, So, but yeah, the return has been pretty damn good on watches. I also, for those of you who, as a result, want to start flipping the watches, please go check the chart to see if the market is at an all-time peak, and if the inflation numbers get or rates get hiked again, how that would affect your pricing structure. I want you to stop dabbling and master something, and not just try and do something for a quick flip.
And watches are a long-term hold for me. Buy and hold. It's like stocks. Everything is long-term buy and hold. You buy you buy. Once you learn one thing, you learn about everything. And if you're investing in good quality, like a Rolex is not going anywhere. You invest in a good Rolex, it's a long-term buy and hold, and it's gonna be worth more as years go.
Yeah.
And you should always have insurance. That's the last thing I'll say about it. Keep the insurance on it.
If you don't remember that. Remember that part.
Extremely important. All right. So let's take a break real quick and let's get my guy Frank in here. Yes.
You guys doing? If I made you money, please put yours in chat. What's the biggest lesson you learned so far in this show?
I want to take all stress out of the user experience. Let's have the app ready when I'm back.
That's a problem.
Look, we've got HP GreenLake. It's a hybrid cloud that can be anywhere we need it to be.
Clever.
What's going on, bro?
Yes,
What up, y'all? What's going on? What's up? I'm learning, man. I gotta count some watches. Hold up. Yeah, man, put me on. What's up?
I got you,
Which
Mike.
one I gotta check?
Now, Mike, put them on. We'll talk after this. Mike will take care of you.
What's going on, brother?
What's up, man? Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. Big fans of y'all, man. I'm taking some notes right now. I appreciate y'all.
No,
love
good,
is love, man.
Thank you.
Huge fan of you.
Seriously, man.
So, Frank, I wanted to bring you on because if anybody's not familiar, Frank is a correspondent at CNBC, and you do a great job all the time. But you had no problem. You did a report a couple weeks ago about black net worth in this country, and reposted it, and it just took off. Went viral all over Instagram, TikTok. A lot of people have different opinions, different views on it. But I think it's important, like I said, to just have a more, involved conversation than just like, it's a 60-second or a 30-second just soundbite on Instagram. So I wanted to just bring you on, and then hopefully we could talk about that and then a few other topics. So I will just briefly just go over the stat if anybody is not familiar with what I'm talking about. So the stat was that Black spending power reached a record in 2021, $1.6 trillion. And that's according to the Selig Center at the University of Georgia. Am I pronouncing that right?
Selig?
Yeah, the Selig Center. Yeah, but I mean, it's University of Georgia. You can just say that.
The University of Georgia. Okay. And that's up since 2000. It's up 171%. But during that time, Latino spending power is also up 288%. Asians is up 383%. And the overall is up 144%. So that would seem like some level of encouraging news. But what's not encouraging is that, according to they put out a report on the net worth, and Black net worth is actually down. So that's interesting, because it would assume that if spending is up, net worth would be up too, because there's more money. So what they're saying is that the Black net worth has actually decreased by 14% and is $24,000 per family, while the Latino net worth has increased 112%, which is $36,000 per family. The white net worth has increased 6% and is $189,000 per family. So, all right.
It's a lot.
Yes, let's unpack this a little bit, Frank. So, okay. This information comes from the Fed. And if you're not familiar, the St. Louis Fed is one of the 12 branches of the Fed. They have 12 branches of Fed banks. And to my understanding, how they actually collect this data is like through surveys. It's like political polling, like kind of similar situation like that, right? So, but how do we come about this number to say, okay, spending is up, but net worth is down? That's a little that's very disturbing. I would just assume that it's not enough assets being acquired. Would you say the same thing?
I mean, I think it really comes down to your slogan, man, assets over liabilities. If you're spending that money on things that don't appreciate in value, that lose their value when you drive it off the lot, or in some cases, as soon as you put it on your wrist, you guys are talking about, high end from the dealer watches. But if you're spending on other things that don't gain value over time, then your money's going out, but you're not building wealth. It's not even any more complicated than that. And you see the numbers for other people. Other groups, I should say, they're spending their money on things that appreciate, whether it's houses, investing in businesses, stocks, crypto, a lot of things you talk about on this podcast all the time.
Question for you, if we can have an honest conversation, do you think that we truly want to be free, and can the racial wealth gap be closed?
Absolutely, man. Like I don't know about all you guys, your backgrounds, but I know I didn't grow up in a house where anybody had a college degree. We were probably unbanked before that term even existed. I used to have to be embarrassed and spend stamps at the store sometimes. I didn't know anything about stocks or credit or, much more than a checking and a savings account. And then you need to try to go to college and be a doctor over there. That's all the nuance I had about finance. So the more you know, the more educated you become, the more enlightened you are. Not only do you learn about these tentpole things like stocks and housing, you learn about other ways to make money, all finance, real estate, like you're just talking about, watches, maybe even comic books. You were mentioning handbags a short time ago. If you look at companies like StockX and GOAT and Stadium Club, they're getting in the handbag business. They're not doing it because they're losing money. So you have to just broaden your sense of what an investment is, but you have to start off with the tentpole things: stocks, homes, 401k, bonds. I know bonds are the most boring thing in the world. And trust me, I don't like to read about them or talk about them that often, but they're a safe investment. There's some things that my colleague, John Ford, he actually highlighted this to me. bonds, they're inflation bonds. They're bonds that keep up with inflation. It's almost impossible to lose money. And until you become a more sophisticated investor, you don't really know about these things. So, Ian, back to your question, long answer, absolutely. We all want to be free. Everybody wants to have power over their own life and the ability to secure the future of their family. Every person in this world.
Frank, so we're at the forefront, I feel like, of a financial revolution. Obviously, we've been teaching financial literacy amongst other people in the space. When I heard the report, slightly surprised, but you've been in this business a lot longer, on the broadcasting side of it. What was your initial reaction to it? And what are your thoughts, right? Because I feel like when we're meeting people, I hear a lot of more people that look like us are actually investing. They have real estate, they're in stocks. Is it a fair assessment of a forecast for the future? What are your thoughts?
I mean, Troy, I'm gonna stop you first off. Good to meet you, man. We're not in the same business, man. You guys are doing some phenomenal work, man. First, you have people learning about things, and you have people talking about things, and then you have people talking to other people about things that are actually meaningful. These are two different businesses. I report on things that happen. I had the fortune of working at CNBC. We do a lot of forward-looking and reporting to put out information that's actionable and investable. But what you guys are doing, man, is really just phenomenal. And this movement you started is amazing. I agree with you, it was disturbing. I think the most disturbing thing is that Black people, sometimes we feel like we're doing better. But when you look at the numbers, and yeah, numbers can lie sometimes, it doesn't really look like that. You know, 50 years ago, more Black people own houses. I showed you the stats right there. 20 years ago, more Black people own houses. Black home ownership has declined by 3% since 2000. And some of that is tied to why we have less net worth, but there are actually some other reasons. Some of it's spending. I mean, I think a lot of us know somebody who just posted a picture from Tulum or something.
Frank,
right?
so you've noticed.
Yeah, you know,
We are in the same business, Frank. What are you talking about?
Right. Like you down in Tulum, you know what I'm saying? Like you don't have your money in the bank. And another stat that was in that report on the back end of it. Every year, Black families accumulate $300 billion less in wealth than white families. Every single year. So that racial wealth gap is growing. A lot of it is inheritance. And I want to speak from personal experience. My mom went to heaven a few years ago. She was an amazing woman. She dropped out of high school to have me. I do have a great dad too. I don't ever want to leave him out. We got to always mention fathers. But dropped out of high school to have me. She was a secretary, eventually worked her way in construction, then opened up her own construction company. Definitely a success story. She learned about stocks. She learns about mortgages, but we never did our wills. And I had the good fortune of being an only child. So there was no dispute. There was no problems. But for a lot of people, they actually lose wealth when the person they love passes away. And I'm sure that person wants to take care of their family and make that transition and that time of grief easier. But a lot of us just don't have wills. There's a lot of people that can't afford to bury their relatives when they pass away. Imagine that.
You know, this is a very important conversation. You're touching on a lot of topics, and the transfer of wealth process is something that we definitely, and that's something that we've been trying to hammer home about wills and trust and life insurance and power of attorneys and healthcare proxies. And yes, there's a lot of different, it's not, and a lot of times people look at numbers and they say that's not true. And I can understand the disbelief because obviously, you know, our history in this country it causes for, you know, certain concern for not, you know, fully believing things. That's completely understandable. But I would say this, I used to be a financial advisor for 12 years before I did this. And the most alarming thing for me was actually seeing the difference between Black people and white people when it comes to wealth. What I mean by that is, you know, coming in and I'm working in a financial planning firm and pretty much everybody there is white. And, you know, the guys are telling me like, you know, I got $50 million of assets under management, 100, 200 million. And I'm trying to be educated, like, well, how did you do that? And they're like, well, all you need is a couple people. Like one person gives you $400,000 to manage. Another person gives you $500,000 to manage, you know, before you have $1 million, then, you know, somebody else gives you 700,000. And I'm thinking like, I don't know anybody that has $10,000. Like, I don't know anybody that has $200,000 to just give me to invest. But I realized that in America, it's still very segregated as far as like where we are. So the people that we are around people similar to us. Mm-hmm. So you don't even fully realize what's going on the other side of the playing field. So you don't even have a full perspective of how wide the wealth gap is, because you're not really exposed to that on a daily basis, right? You're not really exposed to people that have millions of dollars that they can just invest at any point in time and they can just buy a home or they can just buy anything that they want. Most of the time, you're not really exposed to that. And most of the time you're exposed to, you know, your environment. So if you're in a blue class working environment, then that's who you're around and that's who you're exposed to. And that's kind of become normal. But for other people, that's not really normal. So there is a huge disparity in this country when it comes to wealth, because I mean, I don't even need to see a survey. I actually saw it. I worked in financial services for 12 years and I saw from the white financial advisors, their clients, and the Black financial advisors and their clients. And of course, most of the Black financial advisors, 99% of their clients were Black. Most of the white financial advisors, 99% of their clients were white. Most of the Black financial advisors, they were dealing with 529 plans and IRA rollovers of, you know, they wasn't really dealing with millions of dollars of investable assets. They just wasn't, because their clients didn't have that type of money. Where the white investors, the white financial advisors, it was a completely different story. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think a lot of times we do have to question things, but we also have to understand that some of the stuff actually comes with a certain level of truth to it. So it's like, how can we fix the problem? As opposed to just saying it's not true, because it's like, you're not really qualified to say it's not true unless you actually know it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, some of it is systemic. Let's not ever overlook that. Some of the wealth from our communities is intentionally pulled out, or we've been blocked from the means to actually attain it and hold on to it, period. But that doesn't excuse everything. Some of it is spending, and Troy was laughing. I was laughing about the Tulum pictures. I mean, my timeline's flooded, like right now.
Mine too.
Sometimes you got to decide how you want to spend your money, where you want to spend your money. And as you mentioned, it's also, some of it's the company you keep. If you're around 9 broke people, you're about to be the 10th.
But it's also a matter of education and being locked out of certain opportunities and certain doors as well. Because even working in the financial services industry and seeing different things, I realized that's one of the reasons why we started this platform. A lot of people just weren't fully educated, and they were not aware of different things. So that is a major hurdle right there. We still haven't gotten through to everybody yet. And then also what I want to talk about too is that we talked about like the Black net worth. The Guardian had released a report that it will be 0 in like 30 years. And Andrew Yang said something that was extremely powerful, where he talked about a economic tsunami hitting, and it's going to hurt the Black community more than anything. We talk about tech. So, you know, when we talk about these different things where it's like, all right, we know that a lot of jobs are going to be lost through tech. Inflation is at, record levels right now, right? So these are all things that, even if you have education on financial literacy and you're not wasting your money, if you're not skilled, if you're not a skilled worker or a high level entrepreneur, you're still not going to really make a difference in this situation, because it's like most of our entrepreneurs are more lower level entrepreneurs, where it's really like you're just kind of working for yourself and you're not really making any money. And then most of the workers are not skilled workers. So, they can easily be replaced, and they're not making a substantial amount of money. Like, they're not like brain surgeons and not, people that's working in Silicon Valley. You look at Silicon Valley, and almost less than 1% of the people that's actually working there are Black. Did we lose Frank?
I think we lost Frank.
Yeah, I think so.
He didn't go to Tulum, did he?
Hope not. But Ian,
let's talk about that
but while he comes back, because that's a conversation that's not really talked about enough either. Yeah. Skilled workers and high level entrepreneurs. That's what we should be focusing on.
Let me just give you a statistic really quick. So it's a great point you said, because approximately out of 6.7 million Black workers, 42% of the workers currently hold jobs that could be subject to disruption by 2030. That's 8 years from now. So you're talking about millions of people that could literally, if they don't have a skill, their skill could be automated. Now they don't have a job. And if they don't learn anything in the entrepreneurial world, then what do?
You're in trouble.
You're in big trouble.
And that's why I would tell you some.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna throw it to you.
Just give him a report. Frank's computer crashed, so he's restarting it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is why we had this conversation a few weeks ago, Ian. We were like, look, if we don't learn a skill, if we don't properly educate ourselves over the next 2 to 3 years in investing, right? We always talk about it's going to be tough to work your way to wealth. If we don't learn a skill, right, over the next 2 to 3 years, or invest in an asset class like a new one like cryptocurrency, or invest in the stock market, and our jobs are being replaced, where is the money going to come from?
And somebody said, what skill? Coding. That's a high level skill that will get you a high paying job right now, even if you don't have
how to invest. The one no one ever talks about, being the most reliable in your industry. That's what I always say. Those emails don't matter. Go look at the Forbes list. Top 500 people. They have a unique gift that most people don't have. And I know some of you be like, damn, you always be ranting. I don't think you guys realize, like, the people that I'm around. So when I was with Gary V, Rants, shout out Mike Boyd, all of those conversations are about, you need a baseline of 100 million minimum to be secure. Ross told them 10 on assets of a liability on revolt. I feel tight with 10 million. People don't want to tell you the truth. So when I get on here and rant, you guys are like, yo, man, Rashad Troy, please tell Ian to calm down. It's not that serious. If you have less than 1.5 million and you have 2 kids, you're broke. It is that damn serious.
No, it's real.
Then we have to have a collective conversation as a community. What are we going to do collectively to be okay? Because it's not okay if 2 out of 10 of us invest and save money. Not enough. And I'm gonna be real. The Jim Jones, I love Jim. That bothered me though. Couldn't get water in Gucci. The answer is to quit buying Gucci Prada. All those are slave names. Tiffany and Co. Great. You bought your girl a Tiffany bracelet and you're black. They were the ones who made the slave jewelry for the slaves when they came over on a fucking boat. But y'all want to tell me about my attitude. I'm free. We have to collectively decide. And this is the issue. I'm gonna be real. A lot of y'all in corporate that are black, that are from the suburbs, man, the ones in the trap and the trenches want this a lot better than y'all. Y'all comfortable. We have to collectively build. So don't mess with Mikey.
Yeah, no, it's a fact. And they were saying, I'm glad that I'm looking at the earners in the chat. They're like, what skills? We talk about a lot of companies here that you should be listening to, right?
Investing,
right?
Building the business. Those are the only three.
When we talk about Amazon and we talk about Microsoft, we always talk about their cloud business, right? That's not going anywhere, right? That's something that you should be looking into. Engineering is something you should be looking into. Cybersecurity. It's like these are career, like it's around
everything that we talk about
it's
on Market
around
Mondays. That what makes those companies run? What makes those companies? Yes. What makes Microsoft run? What makes Apple run? What makes AMD run? Computer chips. What makes all of these companies that you invested in as to these top companies, Tesla? Yeah. What makes those companies run? You can just reverse engineer it,
right? And
those are the skills that are critical and will be even more critical in the next 20 years.
Yeah, shout out to the earners. Y'all know it's dope. I can't see the YouTube comments, but y'all know. Right. Somebody just typed healthcare. Of course. Look, we just came. We're still in the end of a pandemic, right? Like healthcare. Think about that. And we talk about companies in these fields, in these sectors. So on top of saying like, okay, yeah, we can own a piece of the company. Yeah, you might, if you're still working, let's try to find a skill that we can actually become part of the company and be an investor inside of it as well. Let's take all the pieces on the table. Why not?
And if you are younger than 25 years old, please write this down. Nuclear fusion is one of the most important spaces you need to learn and read about. Because then if we can take hydrogen atoms and spin them with other things and make cleaner energy out of them, that's going to be incredibly important. This is why I always stress to you guys read. And some of you are like, hey, I can't read 500 pages. I guarantee you took your ass to the mall to get your girl a gift tonight, so you can get what you need to get at the end of the night. King, I don't want to hear no excuses.
Nah, you can do
what
it.
Happened. If she come to the EY meet up and LeBron never, with Tristan, shout out Tristan, he glowing. Some of these people in person look like gods and goddesses. I don't know. That you and your mama and your whole mama side of the family don't have to work. That's a good pitch to open up with.
That's a good pitch.
Get on your craft, King.
If your significant other's phone is on silent notification,
it's over with.
It's a bad red flag tonight. If it's
red flag
silent,
on a play.
If it's just tonight, because it's only
even during the day.
8:50. It's only 8:50. If you're on silent notification,
tomorrow's as another red flag day. Yo, we can get up tomorrow. Let's do it tomorrow.
If you're on silent notification and
you
have never been on silent,
really got her eyebrows threaded at 12:30. She may not have.
Hey, wait. If she had the last appointment by 1, it's a red.
Hey,
from Philly.
Philly, shout out to Philly. So
always shout out to Philly, man.
Working in CNB, Philly, obviously blue collar town, very, very blue collar.
Shout out to the joints out there.
Working in CNBC and being around, a different level of wealth that I'm assuming you grew up around. What's the different level of conversation that you hear? That's the kind of stuff that I'm always interested in. Like, you're around people that millionaires, billionaires, extremely high level, people in Wall Street. Like, what's the level of conversation that you're hearing that, most people are not aware of that's taking place?
Well, let me back it up for a minute, man. I did grow up. My parents were teenagers when they had me, but talk about alternative investments. They really invested in education. Like, I went to a Montessori kindergarten. I went to a new school. I eventually got a scholarship to a friend's school, which is a Quaker school in Philadelphia. It's a really good private school. So I've had the fortune of being around people from all different classes, like Chelsea Clinton's husband, I went to school with. You know what I mean? Like people like that, you know what I mean? The kids of Congress people and stuff like that. So I've had that good fortune. CNBC is obviously the next level. I get to talk to CEOs, CFOs, billionaires sometimes. And you know what, man? You'd be surprised. The small talk is very similar to the small talk we all have about sports and things like that. But when they're talking about higher level things, they've read in more. You know what I mean? Like they have a deeper conversation. Sometimes you talk to somebody and you bump into somebody like, man, I'm about some Doge. You like, yeah, I'm about some too. They're not talking like that, man. They're talking about, the long-term utility of the cryptocurrency and which one is going to make the transfer into Web3 and things like that. And so that's really the difference. We all talk about the same things. And I said it before, we all want a better quality of life and secure the future of our families. At the end of the day, that's what everybody wants.
Yes. Let's switch.
Go
Go ahead, Ian. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I want to get to some solutions for those who want them. The current racial wealth gap is 11.2 trillion. I think it's like 44 points.
Yeah, at least it's at least 11.2 trillion. If you talk to William Darity from Duke University, their business school, he says it could be even greater. It really depends on the math that you use and the formula that you use. And he's a big believer that the biggest cause of it is systemic racism. I want to make sure, because I often cite his research, I want to make sure I give him credit. Dr. William Darity of Duke University.
So what are two things we can do tonight collectively as a community to get the ball rolling to overturn that gap?
I'm not an expert. I'm gonna refer to research. I'm not an expert myself. One of the big things we can do that all of us can do today is just spend more money with Black businesses. I mean, it's not even more complicated than that. It's keeping more money within the Black community circulating. And it's also just not being afraid to do business and talk about business with each other. I think that's one of the two big things. Like, a lot of times, and I've been guilty of this myself, I'm never talking from a high horse. I've done this myself. I'm scared to tell another Black person how much money I make when they're applying to my job. I'm scared to tell them, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I asked for these perks and stuff. You know what I mean? Why won't I tell you? You know what I mean? It's really 9 times out of 10 a favored nation thing. Once 2 or 3 of us get it, everybody can get it. But we feel like we want to hold on to the information and hold on to the benefits. But I had a friend of mine, he just flat out told me, if you're applying to this job, here's how much I make. Here's how much you should ask for. And I mean, just that information can push us to the next level.
Frank, let's switch gears a little bit. And on a more positive note, let's talk about Black Mecca, the great city of Atlanta, Georgia. Shout out to Atlanta. We will be there this week. That's like our second home. So it actually just ties in perfectly, because we were just talking about high-end jobs, tech, not enough skilled tech workers.
Right.
But Atlanta actually is leading the charge for Black Tech Hub. 27% of tech workers in Atlanta are Black. That is the highest in the nation. Like I said, I think in Silicon Valley, it's like less than 1%. So in Atlanta, it's 27% of the tech workers are Black. So let's talk about this, because that was another report that you did. It didn't get as much attention as the last report that we cited, but let's talk about the report that you did on Atlanta becoming a tech hub.
Yes, listen, I'm not stopping y'all from posting it. I
got you.
I'm not stopping.
I got you.
We got you.
But on a serious note, 27% of tech workers in Atlanta are Black, and it is an emerging tech hub. When you look at the growth of tech jobs in Atlanta over the last 5 years, it's at about 15%. It's very comparable to the Bay Area that everybody thinks is the mecca of tech. The Bay Area is 16%. CBRE, a company that does industrial warehousing, office space, they rank Atlanta as the 8th best tech city in North America, competing with towns like the Bay Area, like Austin, like Charlotte, which is another emerging tech hub. A couple of factors that really help out Atlanta is, number one, it has the number 1 tech degree producing university in the country, Georgia Tech. And a lot of tech companies have also turned to HBCUs and other colleges there in Atlanta for a college pipeline, and companies outside of tech too, to be honest, like UPS and FedEx. I cover them for CNBC, and they've really kind of built up their pipeline to HBCUs. And then you have a lot of companies moving their tech hubs or innovation centers down in Atlanta. Visa is a great example. They're actually moving their chief diversity officer down in Atlanta. Got to interview her, and she was very honest. Like, we're Visa. We know who our customers are. A large portion of them are Black people. We want to bring Black people into our workforce. So if you're looking to dip that toe into tech, Atlanta is a great place to go, because, the companies that are hiring there, they're very open to looking for people of color in their workforce. And I think every tech company will admit that diversity is somewhat of an issue, especially when it comes to management.
You brought up some cities. I want to talk about one that you didn't mention, but I'm sure you can speak on, and that's Austin, Texas. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of tech companies. Shout out to a friend of the show, John Henry, who has his business out there. Talk about the expansion of tech inside of Austin. I mean, obviously, we know Texas is a state that has no state tax. Right. We've heard Elon talking about moving Tesla's headquarters there. I'm sure for that reason, amongst others. But let's talk about Austin, Texas, as one of those other cities that most people probably traditionally aren't thinking about it as in a tech hub. But over the next 5 to 10 years, potentially could pass everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's just big culture there for tech, man. A lot of tech companies are moving to Texas because of tax benefits. And then, like, you hear slogans like "Keep Austin Weird." People just like the culture. So right now, one of the big things that's driving a lot of tech interest there is a conference, South by Southwest. I'm sure everybody's heard of. That's bringing a lot of tech minds there. And then they're also having that social aspect, which is why there's a lot of Black business in Atlanta, because you go down there, you can have a good time, and then you can also do your business. You know what I mean? And so that's what's definitely kind of fostering that relationship. The question is, can Black people really find their place there, and can we carve out our own niche? And I think that's something that's yet to be determined. And people like you can, write that chapter in the story.
It's funny you say that.
Going off the last point.
Name that's MetaQuest now. It used to be Oculus. It's a Ron Clark Academy, a predominantly Black private school down in Atlanta. And they're doing a lot of these different initiatives around the country. They actually have some pretty robust Black history programming on the Oculus headset, because they want to bring us in. They want us to develop games, develop, music, worlds, whatever else. When you look at hip hop, how that's become a mainstream thing. Imagine if someone create the hip hop of the metaverse. So companies like Roblox and Meta are really trying to bring people in. Also, they say, of course, to close the tech gap, but they're businesses. They're publicly traded companies. One of their key roles here is to obviously generate profits for their shareholders. And the more people you can bring in, especially Black people, Latino people who generally wouldn't be involved in emerging tech, the faster you can bring them in, the more revenues you can bring.
And it's also a thing of being able to move culture. It's just like Clubhouse, like, they got $1 billion valuation after Meek Mill and every other rapper starts to talk about how great Clubhouse is. So at some point, even with the metaverse, it's like, it's great that all of these companies want to, encourage diversity. But it would be better if we had our own company like that was actually Black owned.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with who had fan base.
We are doing something fan base.
Yeah.
Shout out to them. I spoke to
Isaac.
Isaac. I mean, I just feel like at a certain point in time, it's like, you're still relying on somebody else to do something. And it's one of these things that just goes back to like sports and entertainment where, you can't always be talent. You have to be an owner at some point.
Right. Equity. I mean, it's a word that people throw around all the time. I mean, Beyonce said, I need equity, but equity is a powerful thing, man. When you have equity in your home, you can do all types of things. You can take a little bit out. You know what I mean? You can leverage it to buy another property, and equity and other things, whether it be your career, your church, whatever it is, can be a powerful tool.
Yeah. And in Atlanta, they, Paul Judge is leading the charge now. Paul Judge, the Greenwood Bank. He's really, really big in the tech space. We gotta talk to him. He doesn't really talk a lot publicly, but Paul Judge is a very, very smart guy. And he is probably the leader in that whole tech revolution in Atlanta. And then, of course, the mayor, shout out to Andre Dickens. He is the new mayor of Atlanta. Obviously, he's Black. It's Atlanta. They always have a Black mayor. So, it's the Atlanta scene is something that, I think can be the same way they took over hip hop. They can have that same effect in the tech world. So hopefully, we'll see a lot of tech superstars, the next Elon Musk, the next Jeff Bezos. I feel like Atlanta's a perfect place, not just Atlanta, but, Atlanta's a perfect place for, that they have the HBCUs there. They have they have the political support there. They have the entrepreneurs there. They have, and they have an infrastructure in place better than anybody else has it. So, that's something that I think could be something to be encouraged about.
Yeah, I also think the international space as far as tech as well. I know, we talk about Afro tech all the time, and we visited the continent and we're planning to go back. Right, I want to know your thoughts. Like, what do you think about investing internationally, especially the continent of Africa, which we spoke about maybe 2 weeks ago, about how much of the population is very young, very eager, and just lack resources right now. But with the, obviously the expansion of technology and infrastructure, they can have access to earning leisure and other people who are providing education. What are your thoughts about it on an international front?
Well, number one, man, I've been dying to go to Africa. I actually had a trip planned right before the pandemic, and the pandemic just canceled it all. I was going to go to Tanzania. I've been wanting to go to Tanzania since I did a report in 4th grade. And one of the reasons I wanted to go is because it's just so diverse. They have an island off Tanzania. This is a sidebar. An island off Tanzania called Zanzibar with like beautiful beaches. And they have a big city called Dar es Salaam. And then they have all those amazing nature preserves. I want to go pet a real elephant. You know what I mean? Like a real, not a circus elephant, like a real But just to your point, man, in developing countries, and that's what you're talking about when we talk about Africa, that's the term, developing countries. They have more access to mobile phones. They're already using fintech more than we are. So they're already kind of at the tip of the spear of some of these things. Because if you can imagine, if you're a merchant, I'm just going to throw it out at Dar es Salaam, it's probably easier to use fintech and tap and go and whatever else than it is to have a real credit card swiper. So they're already jumping on that, and mobile payments. And in other countries not developed like China, they're already on mobile payments and digital currencies and things like that. So absolutely, man. If you have the opportunity to create infrastructure internationally for any of this kind of thing, whether it be internet, 5G, payments, of course, it's a great investment. What companies at the forefront, I got to be honest, I don't know personally, but a great line of thinking. And that's why you've seen people like Jack Dorsey go over to Africa and look for investments, the founder of Twitter. And also you see a lot of people or a lot of companies in China investing in Africa. A lot of industrial things like mining and steel, precious metals and things like that, but also tech. There's a lot of opportunity in Africa.
Going back to when you were 18, if you can do it all,
you collaborate and work. Yeah, that is hard. And it's like you're saying things like Atlanta's full. We don't want any more people. Like, as you don't understand, like this is a race that we're losing, and you're not helping by saying stuff like that. Like it's not something that is helpful, and it's not something that's beneficial. And ultimately, the more divided that we are, we're still going to be in last place. The only way that we're ever going to achieve anything is through unity and working together and collaboration.
Yeah. And we see that in Atlanta too.
No, we see it in Atlanta all the time. Like I said, it's like we literally like are in Atlanta all the time. But it's just I just don't understand where that's coming from, because when we're in Atlanta, we never get that sentiment. It's always love, and we add value. Of course, nobody wants somebody to go there and take away from it. But if you're going somewhere and you're adding value, why would you not want somebody to come and add value to a place? That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, Atlanta's nothing but love, man. I'm from up north, man. I get nothing but love when I get down to Atlanta. People always trying to help me out, introduce me to somebody. I want to send a shout out to my man. Somebody, if you haven't had him on the show, you should. John Hope Bryant from Operation Hope.
Yeah, my God.
We had a Zoom call with him. It was probably one of the most inspirational 25 to 30 minutes we've had in a long time.
What? All light bulb emoji, man. All light bulb emoji. No joke. Dude. I'm not even kidding with you. Yeah, that's my brother, man. Like, seriously, I call him, man. Like everybody else, man, I get frustrated with this or frustrated with that. I give him a call, man. It's like, let me bounce this off you. Let me run a couple of ideas by you. He's just a great brother, man.
Yeah, and the last point I did want to make real quick, if you don't mind. I just want you guys, when you are moving to these different cities and you're learning these different skills, making sure that you get equity or royalties in perpetuity. Because if not, it would be the similar things like you being a construction worker and building a house, but not getting equity in that block. And also, a lot of you that are friends and families, you need to start making small venture capital firms together or small family offices together and to buy property. Because I even in Atlanta, as black as it is, go look at the data of ownership that is in Atlanta. It is dramatically different from 2007, 2008. So a lot of areas that were traditionally hood or deemed as the ghetto, some Whole Foods and Starbucks popping up over there. Push out the west side. Yeah. So please, as you're going in to build, I want y'all to have fun and have a blast, but make sure you're actually building.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it happen. We went there one year and we came back the next year and we saw a Microsoft building at Atlantic Station. I'm like, where did this just come from?
they didn't tell Microsoft they was full.
Yeah. Right. No, they're not telling Microsoft. They're like Salesforce.
Salesforce, exactly. These towers are just going up. Like, huh?
Yo, Ian, real quick, back to your question, man. The other thing I would say, buy yourself some property, man. Like, buy yourself a house. You know what I mean? Like, no, houses don't always appreciate. It's not always the safest investment. We saw the financial crisis where people lost money on their house, but it's one of those investments where it might lose value, but you can live it. You know what I mean? You and your family can live there. So I'm not somebody who advocates housing over everything else, but it is an asset that has many purposes. You can build equity in it. You can take the equity out. You don't want to live there anymore. You decide you want to move up or you want to move somewhere else. You can rent it out. I just think it's a really versatile asset. You know what I mean?
So, Frank, this is the part of the show where we go to question and answers. I know you've been on for a while, so you want to stay on with us and rock out for a little bit?
I'm on TV every day, man. So
all right,
and I'm not even kidding, man. Y'all think I'm kidding? I'm not blowing smoke. I'm a fan. Like, I love what y'all are doing.
Appreciate
it. Appreciate it. Thank you, brother. Likewise.
Yeah, we'll get to the hip hop debate at the end of the show.
I'm from Philly, man. So like start there. You know,
I got you.
Yes.
Jan's got a plan. What's up?
What's going on?
Hi guys.
Look at this.
Happy
Oh,
Valentine's Day, love.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Got the hearts in the background.
Wow. All love. All
Spreading the
love.
love. Spreading the
Spreading
love.
love.
How's
I love
everybody
it.
doing?
We
Hi,
good.
Frank.
Everybody's-
Hello. How are you?
Good. Hi, Ian.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. So let's get into questions, or you guys want me to give an update? I don't know. Hi, earners.
Yes. You could give
What's up? What's going on?
Well, I really don't have that much, but I will say today we had midday market updates with Lawrence, and we talked about option strategies. One was pre-market highs and lows, and if you get a breakthrough of one of those, maybe a call or put, going that way. So I really like that little tip. Drop some fire in the chat for the earners if you thought that was really helpful this morning. And then we're preparing the earners for a paper trading challenge that starts in a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And although today's Valentine's Day, I was gonna say Martin Luther King Day, Valentine's Day is also Black History Month. And we started a new book called Powernomics by Claude Anderson. So we're really excited about that too. Shout out to the book club.
Yeah.
That's actually perfect. We got to talk offline about that. That's actually, I didn't know you was reading that book, but that's actually.
Yes, that's our new book for the month. So shout out to the earners.
That's perfect.
Now I'm going to go to Arthur Andrews. He's the president of our political science club, and he told me he had to ask a question today. So we're going to go to him first.
Shout out to
Arthur.
Arthur.
Yeah. He gets carte blanche over here.
Yes.
Peace. What's good, fellas?
My brother.
What's up, man?
How you doing? Hey, fellas, I'm gonna see y'all in London, man. Ian, I promise not to attack you, man. Just give me a dap. I'll leave you alone, brother.
No. You my guy. I love you, dealer. We can talk forever.
Frank, man, I appreciate having you on here. Appreciate the report and you exposing everybody to what's going on in our community. One of the questions that I wanted to ask, and the earners are very familiar about this because this is something that I harp on a lot, is that spending stat isn't something that's new. It's something that we've seen. If you go back to 2000, our spending was very high and we were still very low in terms of our assets, so on and so forth. I think what's part of the issue is the way that it's framed to our people is often misleading. And so in a sense, it's framed as though we're irresponsible with our spending, right? And mass, right? And so, however, when you look at how we actually spend our money, we actually spend our money very similar to everyone else. I always say the top 5 things that we spend our money on are housing, which is at 37%, transportation, 16%, food, 16%, savings and investments at 10%, and then healthcare at 5%. So literally 85% of our spending goes to what I call essential living needs. That we get a check, we have to pay for where we live, we got to pay to get to work, we have to feed ourselves, we save our money, and then we, take care of ourselves. We go to the doctor if and when we can. The difference that I find isn't necessarily that we're spending irresponsibly. It's that our asset class, our upper black asset class, we don't own any of those things that provide our essential needs. So our black upper class doesn't own the masses of affordable housing. We don't own any car companies. We don't own any grocery stores. We don't own any major healthcare companies, and we don't own any major financial investment institutions. So as a result, when we spend our money, we're forced to spend our money with other people because you see what I'm saying? And now at the same time, and I'm not here to knock anybody, kudos to the success of those of us who are able to make it to the upper class. However, rather than trying to buy football teams, I would rather see us start a car company. Rather than us try to buy an NBA team, I would rather us see us buy start a grocery chain, because those are the things that then we could go in and support, because those are where we're spending the majority of our money. Right. So when we spend our money and it leaves our community and so, as they say, in 6 hours, it's not because we don't want to spend it with Black people. It's literally there's no one there Black for us to spend it with. And that's not the fault of a lower class citizen. That's not the fault of the middle class citizen. That's the fault of the upper class that have to channel their money and buy those assets that really matter, as opposed to buying a football team and then say, support Black because I got a football team. And then we're going to do that because our next thing that we spend our money on is entertainment. However, when we spend money on entertainment, we spend it on Black people. We support Black people when the opportunity is there. And so I think that part of the issue that we're having is the way it's framed is that if it's put out there and you're a low income or you're a middle class person, you could feel like, wow, what am I doing wrong? But you're looking around, you're like, man, I just paid my rent. You know, I want to get a loan, but there's the white bank won't give me a loan, but there's no Black guys who are willing to give me a loan. And in addition to that, the Black people are reluctant to even rent me a house. The Black guys who get houses, they're reluctant to accept my Section 8. They're reluctant to accept the single family mom because they think, you know, they look down upon them like the welfare queen, just like everyone else does. And so I would say to you, or my question is to you, how can we convince or how can we change that narrative? Because in your segment, you know, we have Rob Johnson, and kudos to him because Rob Johnson is a major affordable housing owner, as well as with Brian Hope, so on and so forth. But there are others out there that, you know, they're in the position to do those things. And it's always say, hey, man, I wish you guys would go buy more stocks. I wish you guys would go buy a house. And it's like, you're in the position to provide that infrastructure, much like other communities, whether they did it by force, through redlining, so on and so forth. But that was their upper class forcing the situation for their middle class to be able to participate. The upper white class instituted the redlining so that the lower white class would be able to participate and become middle class. And I think that if we want to have these changes, if we continue to simply harp to our middle and lower class that you need to change your behavior, what we're going to ultimately do is you're going to drive very risky behavior from our middle and lower class citizens, because now they're going to say, well, I'm doing the responsible thing. However, you're telling me the responsible thing isn't working. And so now I'm going to go and I'm just going to throw all of my money in a meme stock, because that's what the rich guys do. They invest.
Can I ask a follow-up question for you? And you, my brother, so I love that we get to have this dialogue and people don't think we're debating. The same with me and Matt.
Oh, no, yes.
You know, I love you. You my
guy. Of course, brother.
Before you respond, Ian, because people are like, this is King Arthur. Yeah, when we talk about day one EYL, that's who he is, right? So you can put a crown in the chat. This is King Arthur. There ain't no guidelines when it comes to this. This is our brother. When we talk about anywhere we go, Arthur,
these are all our conversations too.
He's the first person to show up. He's the first person to give guidance.
Extremely intelligent.
So, extremely intelligent. If you don't know, do the research.
He used to work on Wall Street. He used to be a risk analysis. What'd you do on Wall Street, Arthur?
No, I worked at market makers.
Market maker. He was a market maker on Wall Street.
The largest market maker. When ETFs first started, it was LeBrant Structured Products. We are on the American Stock Exchange. We are the largest market maker for ETFs.
Yeah.
But Ian, what were you about to say?
Go ahead, Ian.
And I understand that point, but when I'm just be honest.
Yep.
Let's do a poll. Put yes in chat if you guys that are watching tonight bank Black. I've had bank owners cry to me. Why the hell do they support Dogecoin? And even Black people have been convinced to buy apes from Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is a racist artistic structure, but then won't bank Black. Most of the entertainers that we support, they're not Black owned. Even the ones that say they're Black owned. We get a chance to sit in some of these meetings, they're not Black owned. So what is the solution? Because even with that, I don't want to pit the upper class versus lower. But if we are connectively, and this is my thing where I'm like, hey, let's just start with indexes. Because if we can do that, then we can go. And I'm gonna be real. Most people don't buy, y'all buy Gucci more than y'all do EYL merch. Why?
Wow.
I don't get that. That's weird because people actually vote. So I get to the point and the perspective, and this data comes out, and people are upset, and we're mad for that moment, right? Kind of like when your girl go off on you, like, you didn't buy me the flowers. That see what Troy did. He got off the plane and took his wife right to dinner. You should do that, right? You get mad for a day, make a change.
I'm a classic man. Come on,
right? But what do you do with your dollars? I'm gonna be real. Most people are not investing half of their money into the market or into the asset, and I think we have the power to do so.
You know what
But
though?
I think,
Oh, my bad.
yeah, I think we have the power to do so, but we want the feeling of being okay or free versus the work that it actually takes to then be free. And I'm one of the person who came from the bottom, like, and it took me years to get to where I am now. It took me 14, 15 years to get to be able to sit at this peak and give this shit easily away. Most people don't want to suck. They're seeing us out in LA and think we're partying. I am exhausted. It's all meetings. So what is the actual solutions outside of something like that? That's not the real answer. But the truth is we're not investing enough. We're not building enough business.
Well, Arthur, let me chime in real quick because I think what the question to Frank was like, how can it be framed in the mainstream media a little differently? And it is a valid. He actually made a lot of valid points. You made a lot of valid points because even from me being a financial advisor, and once again, the clients that I worked with, the clients that were just they didn't really have millions of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. They might not even have had a couple of $100 a month, but they wanted to do something. And the common denominator was that, yeah, they just wasn't making enough money. That's the conversation that we need to have as well, is because you're right. A lot of rent, and the rent a lot of times are more expensive than a mortgage. And then, we have inflation, right? And it's like, I don't think the vast majority of Black people are foolishly wasting the vast majority of their money because they don't really even have an option. They're literally living, like, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you might be making foolish decisions, but you're right.